Hello, Gabriel. That was like my worst improv in ages. That's all right. They're not always good. That's not the point. How are you guys doing? I hope you are doing well. I want to make a little announcement. Where is Eddie? I want to make a little announcement. We're going to, I had been all that time I'd been trying to make a blog entry before we do this so that people can have access to it before, after. And I just decided that was too much work. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm almost done. I'm doing a page on the other website on eddielewis.com, and I've embedded the playlist. And what I'm thinking about doing, well, not thinking of, it's what I was thinking about doing, what I'm doing now. Hello, Mr. Walker. What I'm doing now is that I have a page set specifically on eddielewis.com, and all you have to do is go to that same page every single time. And so that way, if you want to leave questions beforehand, and this is mostly for other people because you guys are always here, right? Or not always, but you know what I mean. So this is mostly an announcement for the people who are not here with us right now. If you want to leave your questions, and I'll start leaving that URL in the description down below. It's not there yet because I haven't finished the page. I was actually just working on it a couple minutes ago. But that way it's one page. The video at the top is embedded into a playlist. So that way, all I have to do is create the video and it'll go automatically to that page. That's going to save me so much time. When you look at how much time it takes to write a blog, very little of it is actually writing the blog. There's a bunch of work that goes into that. And anyway, so yes, that's going to change that. And you know what? I think it's good the way I'm going to set it up is people can put their comments at the bottom, and what's going to happen is the more people that leave comments, the longer that'll get. And what I think I'm going to do is leave their comments there and then put links to the videos where I answered those comments. That way people, when they go down there and so, I know that I like to read people's comments. So if people scroll down and read the comments, then they will see that maybe someone else already asked that question, and they can go and watch the video where that question was asked. And I think that's a much better way to do all this stuff instead of having a separate page for each post, each Q and A. Anyway, so that's the new update. I'm thinking about not using the blog the way I was using the blog, and there's a bunch of reasons behind that. What stuff behind the scenes stuff that I won't go into now, but I think I'm gonna move everything to eddielewis.com and work from there instead of using the blog for musical stuff. I might start using the blog to post non-musical stuff, and I know it's gonna scare away all the subscribers I have, but that's okay. Maybe I'll give them a warning and let them subscribe to the other website. Anyway, so Anthony says, my community orchestra, we were playing Christmas music last night, and outside it was 95 degrees. That's correct. Christmas, they have Christmas in July, right? I went to Christmas in July in South Africa in 2016. And it was, so we have an image of Africa as being all like jungle and desert and stuff like that. But South Africa is low enough in latitude that if you go up into the mountains, you can have snow. So they have Christmas in July because in South Africa, that's the only way you're going to have Christmas and snow. And so it was interesting. The place where we saw this, now we weren't there for Christmas in July, but we were right before, and they got getting set up and all that stuff. The place where we saw this was at the place where J.R.R. Tolkien grew up. And he said that this place was the inspiration for his Lord of the Rings book and The Hobbit. He grew up in this place called what's it called? Hogsback. They call it Hogsback because the one mountain range actually looks like a wild hog. All right, Gabriel says, Eddie, I sent you an email. You know what? I apologize. This has been a bad email week. Okay? This has been a bad email week. I meant to respond, and I did read it. Gabriel says, I sent you an email about what I understood on Pivot Encyclopedia. I will always pivot as you teach, but I was curious if I got it well because of the language. Quite frankly, Gabriel, I think what he wrote was very vague. And it's kind of hard with the wording that he says. It's kind of hard to understand really quite what he's trying to say. And you know what? For me, I know, and don't take this the wrong way. I know people. There are so many zealots out there. So so please don't take this the wrong way. I know because I've been there. My first book was an absolute disaster. It didn't say what I wanted it to say. And the reason was because I didn't have those skills at that time. And my skills, my ability to, when I'm writing, my ability to say what I mean is getting better every year. To the point, by the way, I took an English class. Now, for this to make sense, you have to know that my English was so bad that it almost kept me from graduating from high school. When I got to college, if it wasn't for my math scores, I would have not gotten into college because my math scores compensated for how bad my English scores were. But when I got into college, I had to take that first English class that doesn't count towards your degree because my English was so bad. And you know what? Over the years, I've taken that very, very seriously. And I don't like that I'm not good at some fundamental skill like that. So I have been all these years. So I graduated high school in 82. And all these years, I have been trying to educate myself so that I'm not, because I'm going to say that I was practically illiterate. Just maybe not illiterate, but right there on the border of what it means to be illiterate. So anyway, my point is, 10 years later, when I wrote my first book and started using it with other students, I started realizing just how bad I was about trying to say the stuff I'm thinking. My thoughts were okay. It was what I was saying that was not okay. And a lot of times when I see other people's writing, I kind of see that. I'm not saying that this guy was a bad writer. But what I am saying is that we don't always clearly articulate what we mean when we're writing. And I think a big part of that, we have the same thing in composition as well. I think a big part of that is that we know what we're thinking. We know what's in our head. And there's stuff that we just never realize that the audience can't comprehend. I hope that makes sense. And I don't mean comprehend in a sense that, oh, you're too stupid. That's not what I mean. The audience can't comprehend because they don't have ESP. They can't read my mind. So I hope that makes sense. So I'll tell you what, Gabriel, I found it extremely interesting what you sent. And it piqued my interest. I really do need to get a copy of that book. So that I know what I'm talking about. So anyway, I'm gonna skip all you guys' hellos except for your first ones. When you say hello, I'll say hello back to you. But I know you guys are talking amongst yourselves, and that's good. I even appreciate that. Okay, so I won't read all of those, is what I'm saying. AC says, "Hey Eddie, howdy, welcome back. What's one way to learn how to better play in tune without using a tuner?" You know what? I'm in the middle of writing an article about this. It's taking forever, just like everything that I do takes forever. You know, I know this is a tangent. There's times when I'll publish like 6 books in 1 year, and people say, "Well, you've been busy," but it's not really like that. Those books would be books that I've been working on for 15, 20 years, and they just happen to all get done at the same time. So there's articles that I've been working on for like 20, 30 years. So when I say that I'm working on an article, it doesn't mean that it'll be out next week. But anyway, I'm working on an article about tuning. And one of the most controversial things that I say in the article is that the best way, the most important thing you can do to improve your intonation is to listen to recordings or attend concerts of people who play in tune. And I've been recommending, let me find I'm going to get on YouTube here and get a link for Vultus 8. I believe that's how you pronounce the name of the group. I listen to these guys so much for 2 reasons. One reason is because, oh, why is it not doing it? Okay. One reason is because they are perfectly in tune. Now, another thing I say is that intonation is cultural. Okay, intonation is cultural. Okay, I've got the link now. I'll put it in the chat. Listening to groups like this, even though it's a vocal group, listening to groups like this is the best way to improve your tuning. So you can also, when you go and listen to the people on my listening list, those people play impeccably in tune. And the same thing is true if you listen to the famous brass quintets. the Canadian brass, Empire brass. There's a bunch of them now. The ones that are out of Europe, Minozo brass, German brass. German brass is impeccably in tune. The more you listen to music that's in tune, the more you will recognize bad intonation in your own playing and learn to adjust on your own. It's, in fact, I'm going to say that this is probably the most important thing that you can do for your intonation, because now it becomes something you hear instead of some mechanical thing that you can't even comprehend, right? It's almost as if, I speak a tiny bit of Spanish, but when I hear Spanish radio, 90% of it, I don't understand it. And when you don't have in your ear what good intonation sounds like, it's like listening to a language you don't know. So the most important thing you can do to improve your intonation is to spend significant time. And when I say significant time, I'm talking about 2 hours, 5 days a week, 10 hours a week. Spend significant time listening to that. The more you listen to great intonation, the more you'll be able to play in tune. Another thing you can do, I'll tell you what really improved my intonation was when I first started doing recordings of myself, right? So when I do 3 or 4 trumpets at one time, it's like the intonation clobbers you in the face. It hits you like a hammer. Mr. Walker says, like the skit, who's on first? Yeah. Anthony says, I get this about people not understanding my hearing is very bad, and I sometimes hear half of things. I'll tell you what, Anthony, my hearing has been like that. What you just described, my hearing has been like that since I was in elementary school. And I actually used that humorously. I have, for my entire life, I have enjoyed telling people what I heard them say, because a lot of times it is very, very funny. But everybody everybody who's close to me knows that I can't hear. So yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. Gabriel says, Eddie, please do you think I can make a concert C over the staff empty, or I need to do it with first? Okay, so there's the whole of the trumpet community is split on that. I just recently saw a brass quintet where one of the trumpet players played all the D's open. So yeah, we say, just so you know, I understood what you're saying, but just so you know, we call it open instead of empty, but I understand exactly what you're saying. But yes, and the reason why someone would use it, the reason why someone would play the D above high C open is because it's better in tune. And in fact, if I'm playing a classical piece, see, classical is a little different because you're always going to play that sequence of notes. So if I'm playing a classical piece and I work it out to where I'm playing first valve on that, I will do that often because I know that it's a better, depending on the context, I will know that it's a better intonation on that fingering. It's not always better. That's the thing. You have to know the situation. I don't think it's good to say that's how it should be every time. Now, let me tell you the opposite of that. I normally use first valve for the scales. I use first valve for like when I'm improvising and stuff like that, because if I don't use first valve, I will get lost. As you go up there, the harmonics get closer and closer, and my oral image of that note is associated with that first valve coming down. So when I'm improvising or when I'm sight reading, I actually believe that sight reading and improvising are the same thing. Where you source it from in your brain, because it is spontaneous. There's something that ties the two of those together. So a lot of times, if my sight reading is suffering, so will my improv be suffering. That's not uncommon. So anyway, so yes, if I'm sight reading, I will not try to do open on that note. I will play that note first valve just so I don't get off the harmonics. But if it's a classical piece and you know it's always going to be that way, you can change the fingering for a better sound, for better intonation. Sometimes we change the fingering because it just makes it easier on the fingers. Alternate fingerings are a huge part of being a classical trumpet player. Okay? Alternate fingerings are a huge part. And in fact, the more different instruments you can have an E-flat trumpet, but then you're going to play this and transpose it that way. And so because you're transposing it that way, this note sounds better 2 and 3 and stuff like that. That's a big part of the classic, how we prepare music classically. So yeah, that's important. Anthony says, and then people look at me strange or get angry. Yep, I know exactly. Especially, well, I'm not going to say that. I was about to mention a certain family member. But it's most difficult for the people who actually live with you. And I'm sure you know that. Because, I won't get a hearing aid. And I think the biggest reason why I won't get the hearing aid is because I've had this almost my whole life. My mom said I got the hearing loss because of ear infections I got in Germany. We learned in Germany. We lived in Germany when I was 1 and 2 years old. We lived there for 2 years, almost the first 2 years of my life, and my mom said that because of the German water, and in fact, my mom told me that she got chewed out by one of the locals, because the local woman saw her giving me water from the tap and chewed my mom out big time. And my mom is convinced that water is what caused me to have ear infections. Now, I don't know how true that is, but that's the family lore. That's the family story. Gabriel says, yes, German brass is what I listen to be in tune. That's a great ensemble. If you want to hear what playing in tune sounds like, that's it. You can't do any better than the German brass. The German brass is definitely not infected by their water. Right? So, now, I don't know. People get offended about stuff, so I hope they're not offended about me talking about the water. Anthony says, sight reading lately, I have been doing quite a bit of it because of being in 2 community bands and taking trumpet lessons every week. That's good. That's real good. Anthony says, you can say wife. I like that. Oh. And then he says, I should have married Lori. She was so quiet. Oh my, oh my, oh my. Gabrielle says, thanks, Eddie. I made in this last week some practice on range, and maybe I got 1 or 2 notes, and they sound good, but it seems I've lost resonance in medium range. What's the mistake? There's no mistake. It takes, when you increase range, it takes at least a couple weeks to get your sound back in the other notes. And that might be from swelling, it might be from just overall fatigue, but that's common. It is not unusual to, when you first make that switch to the higher range, it's not uncommon to have a bad sound for about 2. It depends on what level you're going to. The higher you go, the longer it takes. The highest level that I ever wrote was up to Super C. When I went from the level beneath that I called that, back then in those days, I called them groups 8 and group 9. When I went from group 8 to group 9, it took me 2 months to recover. It took me 2 months. So, yes, this is something you can expect. But don't let it bother you. See, here's the thing. If you're doing the rotation, when you do the lower routine, the pioneer routine, when you do that, to me, it feels like I'm supercharging my lips. It's like getting a trumpet massage. It feels great. So like for today, I played my hardest routine yesterday. It's not my highest because I haven't finished writing that book yet. My hardest routine is the master routine, but at the chops level. It's a book I haven't published yet, but I have finished it. All I have left to write is the triple tongue studies. Taking me forever to get it done. But yes, I have that. And I played it yesterday. And so the routine I do today, I haven't done it yet, but the routine I do today, I'm going to play the trumpet tyro routine. And I'm going to love it because, wow, it's almost like a day off. I'm getting a massage on my lips. So yes, if you do the rotations, it will reduce the amount of time that it takes to get that sound back. Anthony says, Eddie, I know I mentioned the trumpet pyramid a few times, but in days that I don't have much time, I can go through the whole routine and still have lots of time to go over my music. I'm a little confused. You're saying even when you don't have a lot of time, you still have extra time when you're left over? I can go through the whole routine and still have lots of time to go over my music. Well, that's what we want, right? That's what we want. We want most of your time to be spent on the music stuff, not the routine. We do the routine because it's beneficial. You can kind of look at it, an athlete's going to do push-ups, pull-ups, running, sit-ups. But if you look at the amount of time that the athlete trains, that's just a fraction of the time they spend. They don't spend half of their time or 3/4 of their time or all of their time doing those exercises. They spend a little time doing those exercises, and then they work on the stuff they need to work on for their, in our case, it's performance. For them, it's the matches or whatever it is that they're doing. And that makes sense, right? So yes, that's why I have videos and websites and stuff like that that try to help people figure out which of the books to buy. Because if you're only practicing like an hour a day, if you only practice an hour a day, you really shouldn't be doing the CHOPS books. Mr. Walker says, I'll be playing the echo part of Echo Taps tomorrow at a 9/11 ceremony. My state BAA director said I should tune just slightly sharp of the lead player because of the distance we will be separated by. So, I'm not so sure that's true. If you think about the science behind how that works. So when people talk about how something gets sharp or flat, they're talking about movement. Anyway, I might be wrong about that. But I do question that. I've heard people say that before. Let me tell you this, I've never played echo taps like that, and to where I tuned sharp, and nobody ever complained about it. Not that's anecdotal. I don't know that for sure that means anything. Anthony says the routine was much too long when I was not doing trumpet pyramid. Okay, so that's one of the things, right? The trumpet pyramid will help you not waste time on redundancy, and stuff like that. Yes, that's I like to hear that kind of stuff. Yes, sir. Hello, Javier. Yes, he says, hello, Eddie and friends. I hope you are all doing fine. Yes, I'm doing good. Thank you. It sounds like these guys are doing well as well. I did have a friend and a band leader who passed away yesterday from COVID-19. I was sad to hear that. I have people beating me up all the time about the COVID-19 stuff. I won't go into it here, but yes, I have very different feelings about that. What I won't say is that it's a hoax. I've never said it was a hoax. Well, thank you, Mr. Walker. So that's, as a trumpet community, we're connected to people, right? And so when we lose somebody like that, we lose more than just a friend, because the nature of our work is that we work mostly on referrals, right? So when the people who were referring you all the time pass away, you end up not having that anymore. So yeah, it's you know, and I don't want to sound like I'm not sad that he's passed away. Of course I'm sad, and I feel bad for his family and stuff like that. But it's more than just that. It's a diminishing of the connection that I have to the community, right? So I think so far I've lost about 8 music friends to COVID-19. I think it's about 8 so far. And yes, that's going to have an impact. It's got to have an impact. Anyway. So what else do you guys got? I know that's not proper English, sorry. Javier says, sorry, Eddie, no hoax. I have close friends that have had problem with COVID. Yeah, human contact has been damaged deeply in every country. Yes. Now, I don't believe that the lockdowns were the right way to approach this. I don't believe that the lockdowns did anything. I hope that doesn't mean I get banned from YouTube. But that's just my belief. When you look at the data and when you look at one country that didn't have lockdowns and another country that did, and you know what? This is trumpet related. I have to say that because just look right now. So I had what looked to me like a normal September month. And I worked the first gig, I worked the second gig. And then one by one, all of the rest of my gigs in September got canceled, and they said the reason was because of COVID-19. And so you can't tell me that that's not trumpet related. It's trumpet related. These people are destroying my opportunity to work. And if you look at the graphs, it's not making any difference. So they're destroying my work and not getting the results that they say they're supposed to be getting. So yes, Gabriel says, Eddie, you suggested me to listen to Mr. Gatala Hummel Concerto, and it was very useful for me. Do you have any Carnival of Venice versions you like more? Thanks. I love the Gerard Schwartz recording of Carnival of Venice. That's my favorite Carnival of Venice. Gerard Schwartz is, so he's got an interesting story, right? He was one of the world's best trumpet players when he was young, and he gave that up to be a conductor. How awesome is that? And he became a pretty famous conductor. He was conductor of the Seattle Symphony for a long, long time. But before he became a conductor, before he became famous as a conductor, he was one of the world's best trumpet players. Let me write the spelling here in the I'm gonna check that, but that's what I think it is. Let me double check that. Okay, I spelt it wrong. His last name is let me just copy and paste. Now, I thought he passed away, but Wikipedia doesn't have a dying date, so maybe he's still alive. I thought he passed away. Wow, Anthony says he met Mr. Schwartz in New York City during my trumpet lesson. He was playing trumpet then. Oh, wow, that's amazing. So I just sent the correct spelling. Yeah, when he was recording, he was one of the best trumpet players in the world. And you know what? His recording is actually part of my story because I like to listen to, if I'm working on a piece, I like to listen to my favorite recording of that piece over and over and over and over and over again. And all the time I was working on Carnival of Venice, I worked on it for 2 years before I was ready to perform it. And the whole time I was listening to his recording. And then finally, when I was done working on it and I was ready to play it, I said, well, let me play along with his recording. All those years, all that time that I had been listening to it, I never realized just how fast he was going. It doesn't sound fast because he makes it sound easy. I could not keep up even after 2 years of working on it. Gabrielle says, sorry for classical questions in my next life I will try jazz. Absolutely, don't be sorry for asking classical questions. Here's how I tell people. I am a classical player. I am not an orchestral player. And a lot of people don't know how to separate those two in their head. I do not consider myself a qualified orchestral player, but I am a qualified classical player. If you look at all of my training was classical. Most of the practice I do is classical. Most of my compositions are classical. You can't say I'm not a classical player. And then look at my students. I would have to say 90% of what I teach to my students is classical. So yes, I don't mind talking about classical stuff. Javier says, I know it's because of your approach, Eddie. Thank you. Your system works. Yeah. Well, thank you, man. It always helps to hear that that it's working for people. Anthony says, I was trying to keep up with Al Hirt on one of his albums. He played very fast. I have a story like that. My dad listened to a lot of Al Hirt, and I inherited all the albums. And there's a jazz song. Right? My dad had an album of him playing that song. Right? And then his improv like really takes off. He burns it. Yeah. So yeah, Al Hirt had a lot of skill. Gabriel says, hymns look very like classical, do they? You know what happened? Technically, yes, we can say that the hymns are classical. It wasn't always that way. So look at this. First of all, I think what we have to do is recognize that not as many people sing hymns as they used to. Now I know that there are still people that like hymns and still do hymns at church. Before, I thought everybody had stopped. But yes, people are still doing hymns. It's just not nearly as many. You can go to almost any what do you call it, antique store, and they'll sell hymnals for like a nickel each, because the other churches have gotten rid of their hymnals. And so anyway, so I think that contributes to it. But in the old days, hymns were more like ethnic music. Hymns are a music of a people. And it doesn't actually become classical until people aren't playing it anymore. If people stop doing that music, then that's when it's officially classical. And a lot of the hymns are now fall in that category for a lot of people. For me, it's still my music. I grew up with hymns. We go to a church now that sings hymns. And for a long time, we didn't have that opportunity. So yes, there are some strong ties. So look, if what we're going to do is compare it to jazz and commercial music, yes, it falls on the classical side. But technically, it really should not be. It should be like considered ethnic music. And for that matter, ethnic music from that is ethnic to people in Europe and America, because we share a lot of the same hymns. And for that matter, South America, the hymns are big. The hymns are bigger in South America right now than they are in the United States. And I know that because I make a lot of money from my hymns in mostly Brazil, but other South American countries as well. I get at least 1,500 streams a week from Brazil of my hymn recordings. Gabrielle says, is there any book with my hymns? So here's the thing. We do have a book. Let me pull up the Amazon link. Oh, that's the recording. Oh, I put the wrong search. Sorry about that. Oh, do you know what? I actually have a page on my website. Let me just do that instead. I forgot I made a page separately for that book. And it's got the link for different places where you can buy it. It's not as available as some of my other books, because somehow I put it under a category that's not eligible for that kind of So here we go. This is my best-selling book right now, by the way. It's Trumpet Hymn Duets. Now, what I wanted to tell you is that my unadorned hymns, the ones that I put on Sundays, we're publishing a book of those early next year, and it's going to be early next year because I want to publish first the Christmas version. I'm going to try to release the Christmas version either late October or early November. And it's just the unadorned hymns with my harmonies. Just the unadorned hymns with my harmonies. So it's just the hymn by itself and then a second trumpet part based on my system. I have a specific system for coming up with the harmonies. So and it's not just the alto part. It's 100% in line with the chords, but it's not just the alto part. So yes, I do have that, and I have the duet book, and I also have these other two books are going to be coming out in the next 9 months. The one book will have around 100 unadorned hymns in it. Javier says, I got a great tip for cracked lips. It may sound like a joke, but it's not. This is a dermatologist advice. I use a layer of hypogloss in the night before sleep. I'll have to look that up. It's an ointment they use on babies. Oh yes, we have we have something like that. Oh, we have it on Amazon. Oh, the accent's on the last syllable, hypogloss. So someone gave me something similar, right? I go to Walmart, to the store, and I look in the baby section, and they actually sell lanolin, just raw lanolin. It hasn't been treated I'm sure it's been cleaned, but it hasn't been like distilled or anything like that. And that might be the same thing. Javier says it really works. It's like a magic. I believe that. I used to use the lanolin at night. In fact, I still have a big thing of it. It's lanolin is the oil that's in the sheep's fur. And when they process the wool, the lanolin comes off the wool. That's my understanding. I might be wrong about that, but that's my understanding. Mr. Walker says, I still play hymns at home on a regular basis. I love them. Yep. I like your recordings too. I don't tell you all the time that I've listened to them, but I do listen to them on YouTube. Anthony says, every few weeks I play hymns in church, and they do sound classical because a lot of them have double and triple tongue. Well, okay, so that's a thing too. They orchestrate the hymns, and they add a bunch of classical stuff to it. Gabriel says, hymns seems to be perfect for lyrical studies, lyrical etudes, and they are very nice to listen to. My wife and my neighbor will be very happy. Very good. He says, I'm tired to play Conconi or Gotti etudes. It's nice to get some variety, And the hymns are beautiful. There's a reason why so many of the hymns have lasted so many years, right? Some of those hymns are hundreds of years old. Some of the hymns we still sing in church today are hundreds of years old. And timeless music like that, it's always a pleasure to sit and play that stuff. Gabriel says, do I play both the parts or I need a teammate to play them? So here's the thing. I have recordings. And now the recordings are only available on my website, Tiger Music. But if you buy the book and let me know, I will send you for free the recordings. I don't mind doing that. So they are recordings like my what you call it, like my play along videos, where the first part is missing and you play the first part, or the second part is missing and you play the second part. Anthony says the hymns sound beautiful. Yes, they are. Okay, that's good. Gabriel says he'll buy the book when we finish the Q and A. I appreciate that. So yeah, that's by far the best-selling book we have right now. And I knew it would be. I just knew it would be. I didn't even want to. I didn't even want. It wasn't my plan to write a book, but so many people said that they liked those duets, and they really encouraged me to put a duet book together. I'm currently working on a Christmas version of that duet book. It probably won't be done until about this time next year, but yes, I'm working on that. You guys, like I said at the beginning, it takes me a long, long time. That's right, Gabriel. It is an ebook. You can get it off of our website. If you want to download it, you can go to Tiger Music and get it there. All right, guys. Mr. Walker says, I like to play along with your play along videos and some of the backing tracks for B-flat instruments on YouTube. Well, good. I'm glad you're using that stuff. So many people are using those play-alongs. It's such an encouragement to me. I'm so glad. They're a little bit different from other play-alongs because I actually took the trumpet part out. The part that you're playing is not there. Well, there are some exceptions because there's two, I think, that were so hard that I thought, okay, I better leave the first trumpet part in or nobody's going to be able to play this. So I think there's two like that, but the rest of them, the first trumpet part is missing. Javier says, I like the art in the cover of your books. It's beautiful. Well, thank you, Javier. I will tell my wife because she does all of the artwork. I'm so blessed. Before we got married, she was a physicist. Then she got married. I didn't know she could cook. She's the most awesome cook. She does all of the artwork. She does the management of the students and all that stuff. It's just amazing. She's just a absolute blessing. Papa Walker says, it helps me a lot with my playing and with my overall well-being. That's good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that. I'm thinking about, because I have a duet book of 101 duets, and I'm thinking about having my son create play-along files and videos. So a lot of the stuff now I'm having my son do, and I'm thinking about having him do that whole book. Now, let me tell you guys about that, right? My son lives with us, and instead of making him pay rent, I'm making him do 2 hours of office work for me a day, 5 days a week. And so yes, this is the kind of work I've been giving him. A lot of the videos that are coming up are videos that he did for me. I have a bunch of him videos that are coming out, and stuff like that. And he did all those videos. In fact, we did so many videos that YouTube flagged me for putting up spam. We have videos scheduled all the way to January 1st. And during December and late November, we're going to have as many as 3 or 4 videos a day, most of it Christmas stuff. And I told Alex, you're going to have to stop putting videos up because we're getting flagged as spam. Now, I contested each one of them, and they took the mark off of my, they give you a warning, right? But you can contest the warning. And I contested all of them, and now the warnings are all gone. But, and what my assumption is that they were doing that because it was repetitive content. But it's not repetitive content. But I could see how these videos would seem like they are repetitive. So Gabriel asks, is it the same for you if I take it on Amazon? It's Prime and I will have it tomorrow. Oh, printed. So here's the thing. So Amazon pays me the least out of all of them. But I do believe that the way their algorithm works is if people buy the book through them, they will sell more of the book. So there's no, even though I don't get as much money up front, in the long run, I think it actually works better. Now, alternatively, you can get it from Lulu, because Lulu has European distribution too. Now, I get a lot more if you buy it from Lulu. I think I get like 75% of the price. Whereas if you buy it from Amazon, I'll probably only get $2 or $3. So, but I don't have any problems people buying it from Amazon. I don't at all. So, I think you should do what's most convenient for you. But it is true, if you buy it from Lulu, I get a lot more of the money that you send. And Lulu is also physical book. Also, here's the thing about Lulu. Lulu gives you the option if you want coil bound instead of perfect bound. Amazon is going to be perfect bound. Amazon will not sell coil bound books. I'm not allowed to even list it as Amazon. But Lulu, you can get coil bound if you want. And the nice thing about coil bound is that the book will lay flat on the music stand. Let me show you. So this is perfect bound, and it will never, see, I even had to like bend it here to get it to lay flat because it won't truly go flat, right? This is coil bound, and it will lay perfectly flat on the stand. So that's one advantage to getting it at Lulu, because you do have the option of getting coil bound. Anyway, thank you guys. It's always nice to hang out with you. I'm gonna go practice. I haven't even got my day started yet. There's so much going on here. And we'll see you guys next week. All right. I hope you have a blessed week. God bless you, and we'll see you next week. Okay. Bye.